Natalie. Welcome to WTF Podcast, where you can say the word "what the fuck" as many times as you want. This podcast is about divorce, and my guest is Kim Sterling. Kim, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nice to be here.
So we're both divorced, and I'll go into my story, but you're my guest, so I'm going to ask you first. Tell me a little bit about your story and your divorce, whatever you're comfortable sharing. It doesn't have to be in great detail.
Sure.
But the whole point is to provide some, maybe not help, but just, stories that other people can say, oh shit, I'm going through that too.
Yeah.
Very casual. This isn't scripted. So, you can say or do whatever, well, not do, but you can say whatever you want.
Thank you so much for the invite. I'm really excited to be here. I think it's going to be therapeutic for me as well, and hopefully to anybody else who's listening. So I knew my ex-husband almost 30 years. I met him back in 1992.
Wow. That's when
Right?
I was graduating high school in 1992.
Yeah. 1992. We actually met at work. And it was a very it was the attraction, like I looked at him, he looked at me, and we just definitely knew that we had, that sexual, I guess, chemistry.
Did you know right away? Did you see him and then you guys were friends, or no, it was right away, I'm going to rip it.
Yeah, it was all like the googly eyes and the butterflies in the stomach, which I've heard that when you have butterflies in the stomach, it's usually a bad sign.
They should be saying, what the fuck?
Yeah. And I
like butterflies too.
Every time I saw him.
Going forward, if I feel butterflies, I'm going to be like, fuck you, dude. Don't even look at me.
Red flag. Run for the hills, right? So he was in a, now granted 30 years ago, neither of us were married, but he was in a relationship. I had just moved down to Florida, and, like I said, we just had this connection.
Right.
Some way, somehow I knew I was going to be with him.
Mm-hmm. Did you break up the relationship he was in?
Say that again?
Did you break up the relationship he was in?
No, I don't think I broke it up,
No?
Other people might beg to differ, but, like I said, you just we couldn't help what we felt.
Right.
And then, he moved on and he got married and he had kids, and I moved on and I got married, but I didn't have kids. And
no shit. I didn't know this. I didn't know he was married.
Yeah.
First, before you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't remember that. Okay, go ahead.
But we always kept in contact some way, somehow. You know what I mean? Back then, we didn't have what we have today. I think back then it was like beepers.
With the code, with the sign, the numbers that you would turn around and say hello.
Yeah. Like if I send you code 25,
Right.
that means
823 was thinking of you.
Yeah.
143 was I
love you. Yeah.
Right. And then the hello, I don't remember. It was 4 something or other, but you had to turn it upside down.
Yeah, you had to turn it upside down. Mm-hmm. So, through our marriages, we always kept in contact, with each other, which, probably wasn't, right to begin with, but.
Well, you were friends though, right? I mean, you were married.
Yep. And, we circled back in 2000. Oh God. Well, Jake was born in 2007. We circled back in 2003 or 4.
Okay. Now, did you guys have a relationship before you were married to other people, or you were just friends?
Oh.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were friendly.
I love friendly. Friendly with butterfly.
friendly with butterflies.
Okay. Okay, so you circle back.
Circled back, and of course, he was going through his issues with his wife at the time, and I had been or was just about getting divorced. Like
Okay.
I had filed for divorce because that marriage unfortunately just didn't work out, as it should. So of course, I guess when he found out that I was divorced or getting divorced, he was like, "Oh, okay."
Oh, that call came in. Hey, so
Exactly.
was Facebook around at this point or no, not yet?
I think if it was very, very new or
Okay.
not yet,
Okay. Got
or maybe it was coming. You know what I
it.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but he knew where I lived, and I didn't have any kids, and I didn't have a stalking ex husband, the first one.
Right.
So if somebody just casually knocked on my door
Right.
or rang the bell, and you look through the peephole, and you're like, "Oh,
There was
okay,
no ring camera.
yeah, exactly." Well, and by this time, cell phones were there, and
Mm-hmm.
all that good stuff. So so I'll try to make a long story short. We've known each other for 30 years, and we were married for 15, and then we got divorced in 2022.
Okay, so you've been divorced
So
3 years.
it's coming up on 3 years.
One, three. So let me ask you a question. Out of the 15 that you were married, right? Honestly, were they all happy, or did you see like, the relationship was sort of spiraling out of control at some point?
You have to. So when we got together, we didn't have any kids.
Right.
So it was like we could go out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday through Sunday. We didn't have a care in the world. We didn't have to feed anybody or bathe anybody or take care of anybody. We were like living in the honeymoon stage
Right.
of our relationship. And then, of course you have kids, and, again, it's not the,
How long,
not the kid,
sorry to interrupt. How long were you married before you had kids?
30 years. No, just kidding.
That's what it felt like.
I would say, so Jake was born in 2007, and we were together like the second time, like when we finally circled back, probably like 2003, 2004. So maybe like 3 years
Okay, 3 years.
ish.
Okay. So during those 3 years, it was like,
Honeymoon
the
stage.
honeymoon phase, right? Because you didn't have any of these other pressures, or
Yeah.
other competing. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. If we wanted to, go out at 10 o'clock at night and grab a movie, if we wanted to go on, to the beach at 6 o'clock in the morning to see the sunrise, it was just us we had to worry about. We didn't have to worry about anybody else. So, I
Right.
mean, and then, baby number one came, and of course, you're locked down.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going out. You're not doing this and that and running around and this and that. And,
Now, did
um,
he stay home with you, or were you home with kid number one and he was still going out?
uh, well, no, we were married. So we
Well, I
were,
know you were married, but
oh, okay.
I
No, no,
mean, not
no,
all husbands,
yeah,
stay home when the
I
mom has
gotcha, gotcha.
kids. You know what I mean?
No running around that I know of, I mean, I
Right.
mean, he was home all the time helping me. And like I said, I'm trying to look back, and I don't recall any of that time, um, questioning anything. So my kids are 16 months apart.
Mm. Isn't that
So baby,
call it the Irish twins?
yeah.
Or
So,
yeah.
yep.
Okay.
So baby number two was, 2008.
Okay.
So yeah,
That's
about
when it really got real. Now you
yeah,
have
six,
two,
six,
two
16
kids.
months,
Yeah.
16 months apart. And, I got one who's like trying to walk and one who's, in diapers and,
Right.
you know, and
Mm-hmm.
now we're really locked in and, not going out or doing anything. And,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
During this time, did you work when the kids were first born?
I did. I took the normal or the standard, what is it, 12 weeks?
12
Is it
weeks.
12 weeks? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
12 weeks of family leave.
Mm-hmm.
And, did my 12 weeks and put the kids in daycare and, went back
Right.
to work because somebody had to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
I did the
you,
same with baby number two. She went into daycare and back to work.
okay. Um, and both of you worked full time?
Yes.
Okay. So then at what point, so we know about the strain of kids, right? And just learn, like, I think back to that time and honestly, I'm like, how the hell did I function? Especially when you're working and not to, don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I think that moms that stay home is the hardest job anybody has, right?
Oh, yeah.
Um, but how did I have the energy like to work, 9 hours? Then I would sit in traffic for an hour and a half getting home, then grab the babies, then cook dinner, then bathe and this and that. And it's like, who has time? By 9 o'clock, I'm like done. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, and I think that, has an impact on a lot of marriages. And it's important, to make time for your husband or your wife. But shit, when you've got two little ones, and my first two are 18 months apart, I was fucking exhausted. And the thought
Yeah.
of doing it now, I have no idea
Oh,
how I
yeah.
would do it.
I would, somebody would have to call like, CPS or whatever, child services on me because,
Seriously. Okay, so you were working outside. So two kids, you guys both work full time. When did you feel that it was heading towards divorce? Like, did you guys talk about divorce or were
well, you
you
have to remember, I,
him?
I I'm only divorced 3 years, right? So, 15 out of the three,
Right.
um, like, again, just thinking back on it, I never really, there were, in the very beginning, like, especially when we had kids, I really didn't question anything because we were always together with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
We really didn't go out anywhere or do anything. I was very particular about who watched the kids. It was either my mother,
Right.
my mom and dad, or, when the kids got a little bit older, I had a girlfriend that I said, just sit with the kids for like 2 hours. We need to go have chips and margaritas
Right.
somewhere and we'll be around the corner and you could,
Mm-hmm.
you could call me and let me know, come grab your kids. I'm out of here.
Right.
Um, and I think it wasn't and again, I, it- you don't have to leave the house to do, the cheating or the deceiving. You could do that from the comfort of your home.
Mm-hmm.
You get on the computer, you get on the Facebook.
Now.
Oh
Yes.
yeah,
Now. Yeah.
yeah,
I think the digital age has caused, and I haven't researched this, but I'm sure that the digital age has caused a spike in the number of divorces.
oh,
Because, yeah,
absolutely. Oh, totally agree.
everybody should have that friend that you can give a name to and she'll just find everything out about that person. And you're that
Yeah.
friend to me.
Yep. I probably could have, if somebody said, Kim, go find bin Laden, I probably could have found him a lot faster than,
Me that, it's when it's your own life
you can't
until
find it.
right, right. And it's like you have to come to terms with it because a lot of times you're like, I know it's happening, but I don't want to know, you know?
Well, you know what? There's that, I don't know if it's the expression or that saying, um, be careful for what you wish for or look for, or, you know what I mean? I think it's denial is what it is.
Right, right,
You know,
right. Yeah,
you don't find it because you don't want to find it.
that's right. Yeah, I think I've always, and this is me, and I've always taught my kids, you always go with your gut. Like there's always this feeling, this sixth sense, I
That's the
call
butterfly.
it.
That's the butterfly.
The butterfly, maybe it's the fucking butterfly. But even like, I tell the kids, if you're getting a bad vibe from somebody, walk the other way. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
listen to what your body's telling you, because it is telling you something. I just think a lot of the times we're not fucking listening. Like the butterflies. We
Yeah.
ignore the butterfly.
We ignore it,
Right.
it's like having a headache. Do you want to live with it, or do you want to take an aspirin?
Right.
Well,
Right.
well, take an aspirin and you'll feel better. So
Aspirin didn't fix your divorce. So what what sort of what led you guys down that path? And you don't have to give me specifics, but
well, there's so much in between, right? So again, my divorce is only 3 years ago.
right.
And with two kids and working and managing a home and managing work and managing life and managing
Mm-hmm.
your sex life and trying to fulfill everybody's needs,
Mm-hmm.
kids, husband,
Mm-hmm.
yourself, family,
Yeah.
friends, those things, like, sex probably isn't as often as,
Mm-hmm.
you know, your
Mm-hmm.
husband or your spouse or your partner would like. And
Right.
it's not because I don't love you, it's because I'm fucking exhausted. And the
Exhausted.
last thing I want you is on top of me.
What's funny is I spoke one of my good friends, I won't mention her name, and she's been married a very, very long time. But she always said to me, I don't care how tired I am. If my husband wants to have sex, we're having sex. Even if I have to like shut it down, I'm not in the mood, pretend, whatever it is. And it makes sense what she's saying, right? The way to a man's heart is his stomach or through sex. I mean, at the end of the day, I've really learned that that's true. Um, but there's just some people that can do that and some people that can't. You know what I
I,
mean?
can,
And you're
I mean,
exhausted and just, it's the last thing you're thinking about.
yeah. I mean,
So
like,
I get
I,
the
I,
whole concept, but yeah.
yeah. I mean, most likely, I probably haven't showered in like 2 days.
No.
Brush your teeth, maybe. I don't know.
You're
Shave,
not happy with the way you look.
yeah. Shave my legs or any other part of my body. No. But if you still want it, uh, okay. I'll just lay here. Do do
Yeah.
do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Or you can have me when I'm like showered and ready to go.
How
And
often does that happen when you're
uh,
with two little kids, right?
yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
um, so like I said, the kids were born, you're working, you're trying to take care of everybody and yourself. Um, and then the fighting starts
Right.
and the bickering. And I, my ex never was like, well, I'm going out with the boys, or I'm going out of town, or I'm this or I'm that. Sometimes we went to our separate rooms, or like he would be downstairs watching sports, I would be upstairs, watching TV, or and then like I said, then there's kids in between.
Mm-hmm.
Who's got to eat? Who's got to be fed? Or who's got to eat? Who's got to be bathed? Who's got to go to bed? And
Yeah.
there were times in the relationship where we were like two ships in the night. We would just cross each other, like in the hallway.
Did
And
you
then we
find
have our,
that like I know when I was married, I held a lot in just because I was exhausted. And I'm
yeah,
like, I don't want to communicate. I don't want to, and in hindsight, I think that's a big step that causes a marriage to go downhill.
communication. Oh yeah,
Because
for sure.
you start sort of holding on to these feelings and they fester, and what was small is now
Mm,
huge. As opposed to, you know what, we're going to take 15 minutes every night and you're going to tell me what the fuck is on your mind. And I'm not going to personalize it. And I'm going to listen to you. And, sort of things like that, that I don't think I certainly didn't understand until I was much more mature and out of that survival mode. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah.
You're just
No, I
trying to,
get it.
raise little humans and figure shit out. Like there's no rule book.
Yeah. I would say to myself and to him, I said, we're going to get past this and we're going to get to the point where, like, now
Right.
my son is graduating high school. He's
Mm-hmm.
18. He's going to be
Right.
going to college. My
Mm-hmm.
daughter's 17. She's got one more year. And we could have been that couple that says, oh my God, it's Monday night at 10 o'clock. Let's go see a movie.
Right.
And we can pick up and go and do, like, everybody drives now. Everybody's got a car. We could say, hey guys, we'll be home, at, later, and we'll see you when you get back. But we didn't make it there. And
Well, you didn't make it there, and there's also, couples that yes make it through the kid era, right? And then end up getting a divorce because they're like, we've grown apart. We don't even know who we are. Like we don't identify without kids, So
right,
it's almost like you're re-falling in love. That's not a very, scientific word, but you're finding each other again, and you're having to like fall in love again to this different person now that's not attached to a child.
right,
Right. So our personalities change when the kids are out of the house. We're probably a little depressed because we're used to having our kids all the time, So it's like a whole different dynamic. I think it can go either way.
absolutely. The good thing is that we did have common interests. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So we liked the same things. We liked going to concerts. We liked the same music. We liked going to the beach. We had that in my first marriage. My ex-husband would be like, oh, go with Natalie or go with so
Right.
and so. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, well, every time, now you're not with me. So now I
Mm-hmm.
don't need you.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm used to doing things, by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in the other relationship, because we did enjoy each other's time and company, and we liked to do a lot of things,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think we could have gotten there again. You know what I mean? Had we, through the good times and the bad.
Right.
But we just didn't get there. And like I said, I would say when the kids were like elementary school was tough. Middle
Yeah.
school was tough, and I'm not gonna lie, even high school is tough right now. Um,
It's just a different, people say it gets easier. I don't know that it gets easier. It just changes, right?
it's
The
different.
responsibility changes. It's, they start driving and that's a whole other ball game. And
Yeah,
so I think like every, couple of years, it just changes. I don't know that it necessarily gets easier. Although I could like I remember back to the time when they were probably 1.5, 2, like when they didn't know danger. I
yeah,
can't imagine going through that again. Like to me,
right.
that things have gotten much better since then. But that
Absolutely.
whole you go to the park and you have two and one's going down the slide and one's on the swing. Oh, that was just
Yeah. It was, and sometimes I found myself like, I don't want to go out,
mm-hmm,
like going to the beach. Fuck
mm-hmm. No.
that. No,
Yes, even now, I'm like, unless I'm spending a weekend there, I'm not driving to the beach between the,
no.
even more with kids, with the sand and
Uh,
the sunscreen.
yeah.
I
And we
agree.
lived, well, I still live in a townhome community where the pool is in walking distance. So we used to
Mm-hmm.
put the kids in a wagon and wheel
Yep.
their ass down to the pool, and we
Mm-hmm.
would bring everything that you would have to bring. And then when they were tired, you just wheel yourself back home. There wasn't getting in the car
Easy.
and this,
Yeah.
no,
So much easier.
I mean, it worked for us,
Right.
you know, it definitely worked for us. But now let's fast forward.
Mm-hmm.
And the day that my world changed was probably this week, 3 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's an anniversary.
It's an
I didn't know
anniversary.
that. Look at that. Okay.
It was an anniversary. And due to social media, I
Mm-hmm.
found a picture, or let's just say somebody within my family found a picture of my ex and his current wife at my stepdaughter's college graduation.
Okay. So hold on. Let me recap. Current, your husband at the time at his daughter's graduation with his girlfriend while his wife, you, was home.
Correct.
Okay. How did that go down?
Not good. Not
And listen,
good.
I'm sure this happens a lot. Maybe not the scenario that you know, that you
Well,
have, but I'm
you
sure
know,
it happens a lot.
so let me back up a little bit. So obviously, I was married at the time, and I'm talking to my ex, and I'm like, we have to make reservations, we have to make this, we have to do that, my stepdaughter's
Mm-hmm.
graduation is coming, and blah blah blah, and I kept on getting blown off. Now that I'm looking at it, back then I was like, well, you just tell me when the date is, and we'll just go. You have to book a hotel, and you have to this, and you have to that, and blah blah blah. And I don't remember exactly how it went down, but I think my ex had said, like, I'm gonna go. I don't know how many tickets. I don't know. It was, like I said, it was all a lie back then. But whatever the case may be, he was
Mm-hmm.
going. I didn't know he was going. He went to work on whatever day it was,
Mm-hmm.
and then he drove to Tallahassee.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember, and I'm not blocking it out or hiding it. I just don't remember,
Right,
like,
right.
I don't know what he told me, that he didn't come home that night or day.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what happened. Tallahassee's 7 hours away. The graduation was, let's say, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right,
So if you get on the road at 5 in the morning
right.
and drive 7 hours, it'll
Mm-hmm.
put you into Tallahassee around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So
Right,
that, and he normally would work Saturdays and Sundays,
right.
off and on. So him getting up early, going to work, blah, blah,
Was
blah.
warm.
Yeah. So now it's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And somebody within my family, through social media, is friends with my ex stepdaughter,
Mm-hmm.
and they're posting pictures and this and that. And there is my ex husband with his now wife in this
Did you
picture.
know? Did you
I
know her, like from a
no,
face? No. Okay. And
nope.
how did you know that it was his girlfriend? Like, were they weren't hugging or anything like that? Like, was it a family
So
picture?
somebody sends me the screenshot or the pic, and I send it to him, and I'm like, who the fuck is this? And he proceeds to tell me that, oh, it's one of my stepdaughter's friends, the
Mother.
mother, a mother
Okay.
of one of the
Like somebody that
friends.
was graduating there,
Right, right,
and
right, right.
right.
And I said, don't come home.
Hmm. Did you just knew?
I know,
Like you
yeah,
knew? Okay.
yeah. Like, you left me home
Yeah.
for our
Yeah.
kids' college
Mm-hmm.
graduation, and this is how it goes down.
Yeah. Did he deny? Well, I guess he said it was the friend's mother.
Uh,
Once you
he did.
told him don't come home, what?
He denied it in the very beginning, and then I said, "Don't come home."
Yeah, then he was probably like, "Oh fuck, I fucked up those butterflies."
I said,
Yeah.
"Don't come home," and it was ugly. It was ugly for a while.
Did you feel like that initial? Did like your
I
knees
felt
buckle? What did you feel when you saw that picture? Other than anger and probably confusion, I would think, but physically, what did you? Do you
I
remember?
felt I felt anger. I felt betrayed. I felt embarrassed
Yeah.
because I'm thinking to myself, with social media, if there are other people that are friends with, it's like 6 degrees of separation. It's
Who
like,
knew? Right. Who knew?
let's say you were friends with
Right.
my
Yeah.
stepdaughter,
Mm-hmm.
and through social media, you go, oh, I know Kim's married, but
Who's
that's
right?
that's not
That was
Kim,
her.
you know.
Right. Right.
So, um, so I was very upset. I think more embarrassed than anything, you
Yeah.
know. Like,
Me
now you have me exposed, or you've
too.
exposed yourself, or she exposed you
You.
and everybody else to the fact that, you know, you've been living this lie.
Right. So
And
when
again,
and I mean, I suspect that also hard for you is that you weren't able to tell the story. The story was told for you
yes.
through your family and,
Yeah,
those 6 degrees of separation
right.
people. The
You know,
narrative was already there.
oh
It's
yeah,
not
yeah, the story was already written and I wasn't even
right.
part of it, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And I'm sure this is not our our first podcast together. I'm sure we'll have many more, and we'll kind of like fill in the blanks of where things, where we don't answer everything today.
Right.
Um, it was, I don't remember at what point, but at one point I felt like relief.
Yeah.
Like, I am fucking out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Because before it all went down, in that gap, in that,
Mm-hmm.
in the time where the kids were a little bit older, there was the fighting, there was the bickering, but then I would say, oh, he there's no way that he could be seeing anybody. And I don't think he's talking to anybody.
Right.
So I would put that in my head and give myself assurance that everything was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I found out what happened, then you go into the archives of your brain and go, this makes total sense.
Yeah.
Because then you start to put dates and
Yep.
times, and you
Mm-hmm.
start putting together this 1,000-piece puzzle.
Puzzle. Yep. And it all becomes very clear. Like, that's where you were, or
That, or
that's what you meant by that. Yeah.
exactly. Um, and I was just like, how could you do this to the family? The kids are so young and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And you were talking about before, like, do you stay for the kids?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe that,
Yeah.
as much as you
But
want.
it is something that even now, because shit happens after you get divorced, and thank God I have amazing children, but I often sometimes think, should I have stayed in it unhappily, but for them? And my answer is always no. Because I feel like, you know, right or wrong, I'm showing them that I can be happy and dad can be happy. We don't have to be happy together in order to
Right,
have amazing children.
right. Oh,
Doesn't mean that
absolutely.
we're perfect. We fight all the time. But um, I
I,
think that's different than having it under one roof where you're setting the example that this is what a relationship should be when it's not,
yeah,
right? So,
for sure. Yeah, obviously, he did come back home, not for, it was too early to, um, just have it end. And I
right.
don't know how to explain it. Like,
Well, you had to file for divorce and you had to
no, no,
go through.
no. I mean, like when he finally did come back, like, from his,
Uh-huh.
daughter's graduation, um, I said, obviously, you're going to have to come home. You just can't desert the kids, or
Right.
you can't just up and go. We're going to have to make up some cockamamie story about, like, oh, I'm working late. I'm going in early. I'm staying at a friend's house, or, like every day or every week we had to come up with some new story,
Mm-hmm.
some lie, unfortunately. which is not healthy. Yeah, not healthy for anybody. Um,
But you were like in survival mode because I mean, you literally found out that day, right? And of course, your first thing is like, "Don't come home. I don't fucking want to see you again." But
yeah,
then you sit down and you're like, "Okay, we have children. You know, clearly your shit is in the house." And so I mean, it was like so immediate for you because right away you had to. He's at your front door again, right? So you sort of had to tell lies, if you will.
yeah,
Because who's
yeah,
got all this shit together with
right,
8 hours notice, knowing that he's had this secret life, you know?
yeah. And that's and I think that's the other part. It was like this secret or double life that you were living behind our backs when all you had to do was just come to me and say, I, I'm
Not
done, or I'm not happy. And
yeah,
then, at that point, maybe we could have sat down and figured out why we're not happy or why you're not happy, and,
and if
and
it's salvageable, if we could go
right,
maybe seek
right.
some
But,
counseling or whatever. Yeah,
but, but unfortunately it went down the way it did. And I said, I don't think there's any bounce back from this.
right.
And maybe I didn't want the bounce back. Maybe I just said, you know what? If this is the way it's going to go down, then it's over and done with. And I put so that was in May of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
I put the wheels in motion super fast. We were divorced in September.
I remember that. You got divorced really fast. Um, which I mean is great, right? And I'm assuming, you know, you were charged with this motivation of I want to close this chapter of my life, right? Because it was so detrimental and because, you know, you found out this ugly, you know, story and life that he had been living.
Yeah,
Um, but, you know, I think there are some divorces that can last, you know,
years.
years. And then to go back to one thing you said, where you said there's no comeback from this. I know a lot of people that the spouse has had an affair and they come to terms with it and they accept it and everything's cool. I
Oh, you
know
mean like they stay together?
that, yeah, that they stay
Oh,
together. You apologize. I accept it. We're good. I know other people that have had an affair. The other spouse says, I forgive you. But then every time they get into a fight, they bring up, well, you fucked so and so, right? So,
right.
and that was to me like, that's how you know. Because if you're going to forgive somebody, you're going to forgive somebody. And if you're not going to forgive that person, you're just going to say it to make yourself feel better. And that's going to come up every single time you guys have a fight. That's going to be fucking miserable.
Yeah.
Miserable. It's just, you know, and whether you did it or not, I don't think that's right. Give me my dog's barking.
Oh,
And so
now
we
my
have
dog's barking.
15 minutes left. And yes, you're right. I will definitely have you on for another podcast, but I want to go into real quick. What what would you tell someone that is, you know, just got divorced today? What would your advice be?
If you just take time for yourself,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
learn how to sit with yourself. I know a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people who constantly need to do something and
Mm-hmm.
constantly need to be somewhere and
Mm-hmm.
constantly need to, be occupied.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you could sit with yourself, you can learn a lot about yourself. There's lonely and being alone,
Yeah.
and they're two very different
Oh,
things.
absolutely. And
Absolutely.
I think, you know, sitting with yourself, I think sometimes is something that you learn, right? I had a very different experience. I went the other route where I constantly had to be doing something. Um, and I didn't allow myself to feel anything. To me, it was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm going back for PhD. I'm fine. People would come to my house and say, oh my God, you're so strong. Bullshit. I wasn't talking about it. I wasn't, and that rears its ugly head, in so many other ways that it took me some time. And it was the best thing that I have done is number one, I was too hard on myself. Number two, I would tell somebody in my shoes, it gets better. And it does get better. And number three, I fell in love with myself. And it's a lot easier to say that than to do it, right? Like I can honestly say, I love my fucking life. I do.
Yeah.
And not with anybody, but I have the most amazing life. And I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. However, I worked on that for so long because it's, my identity changed. I wasn't so-and-so's wife anymore. I was now just Natalie, and it was like, okay, who is Natalie? And it took me a long time to figure that out and to be happy and to be, not so hard on myself. Yeah, people fuck up. Okay, move on.
Yeah.
I can't control what you're feeling. I can't control what anybody's feeling except me. And
True.
that is very, enlightening to me is, you want to be pissed off. Okay. You're entitled to be pissed off, but you're not going to change how I'm feeling,
I have a lot of friends that are divorced or going through relationships, and I can't, everybody's like, oh, Kim, you're so strong. You're handling this so well. And I go, I said, maybe it's just me. I said, but I can't be that person that is pining and crying and, sitting in the corner in the fetal position.
Right.
You just gotta keep on moving.
Everybody's different though. So I think because,
Now,
that
that doesn't mean that I didn't cry and I didn't have a good,
you gotta push through it and like move beyond it.
Yeah. I got 2 kids to worry about, and I got a job that I have to do, and that doesn't mean that when I'm in the car and I hear that, that one country song that hits you right in the gut, that I don't have a good cry on the way, or if I'm in the shower, something comes into my head, I go, that doesn't make me upset, but for the most part, you just got to keep on moving.
Yeah. And you got to push through it. I think, I have a friend that got divorced that didn't allow herself to feel anything. And she never got through it. You know what I mean? Like she was stuck. And it's like, you have to feel, it's so stupid from the movie. You have to feel all the feelings. And then just keep going, like ram fucking through them, and you're going to come out on the other side. I feel that when we don't have the courage to do that, we're stuck, and you're just stuck,
Yeah. I think the other thing is, and I don't know where this kind of fits into everything, but I was the breadwinner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Had I not been, this would be a fucking different story.
Well, there's a lot of people that are forced to stay married because of financial reasons. Like, either there's just one person working, or, it's just economically it's not, feasible or whatever. But
and I'm sure my ex at the time wasn't thinking like, oh, Kim makes a lot of money. She could do this on her own.
And I'm sure I never thought in my career, like I make a great living, I will tell you though that my mom's been dead 25 years, but she always instilled in me 2 things. Get your education, because what's in your brain, nobody can take away, and save for a rainy day so that if you want to walk away one day, you can. So, whether it's right or wrong, that's a whole other podcast. Our system is fucking warped. Because I just think, some women or men that don't work get divorced and then make a fortune off of their ex-spouse. I
Yeah, that
think
didn't happen in my case.
no, it didn't happen either. But sometimes I think I'm sending the wrong message to my daughter because I'm like, you know what, just fucking marry rich. I don't know what to tell you. But anyway, that's a whole other podcast.
That's a
So,
different podcast.
all right. Well, thank you for jumping on. This has been great. I
I
will
can't wait to do it.
definitely.
We need more.
I
We need more.
know. It's very therapeutic, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, we probably haven't touched on everything, but if you want a part two, you know where to find me.
We will. We will. All right. Thank you, Kim.